Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast, sponsored by the IBCA. We are a global podcast that shares the passion for the coaching profession. You will hear the stories of coaches from all around the world. We are covering the profession in game, outside of the game, and anything in between. As always, thank you for listening. We look forward to sharing the coaches' stories with you.
Welcome back to another episode of After the Timeout. We have Jamon Copeland, head men's basketball coach at Ave Maria University. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited about it.
So we start every episode with the opening tip, and we found it to be really awesome because we get to learn about your journey and your program, and then our listeners do, and we always get good feedback on how different everybody is, right? And everybody comes from different places. So, kind of tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are, and then definitely give us info on your program and how you guys are doing and what's going on this year and going into next year.
Yeah, I love it. So, probably like most coaches, I wanted to be a pro, wanted to play in the NBA. That was my dream. I've been passionate about basketball my whole life, ever since I watched The Pistol. Have you guys ever seen that movie? I kind of was hooked, man. I was hooked and passionate about it. And then in college, you realize you're still playing, but you're playing at a small college level, later high school, college. Man, I'm probably not going to be a pro. This is probably a pipe dream. So then I wanted to stay around the game. I love the aspect of team. I love competing. So at that point, I was like, man, I want to coach. And my high school coach offered me a job as soon as I told him that, like, hey, you can come back. I grew up in Dallas, really good program there, really good coach, Coach Chastain at Capel High School at the time. And so I had a job all through college, and that was my dream. I wanted to be a high school teacher, a high school coach. And then my senior year in college, one of his assistants got a job. So instead of being the freshman A-team coach with Coach Chastain, I could come and be the top assistant at Keller Central High School for Coach Pell, one of his assistants. So I took that right out of college, did that, loved it. Wasn't crazy about the teaching aspect. I was teaching world geography and definitely wasn't crazy about that, but I was crazy about the kids and basketball. And then went to my first Final Four. We went as a staff. Well, that fall we would go and spend 3 or 4 days and go watch 3 or 4 Division I programs practice, and did that. Man, it really intrigued me. And then the Final Four got me hooked. I was like, I want to pursue college. The teaching aspect is not what I want to do. I want to pursue college. So that spring, I told Coach Pell, I said, hey, this is what I want to do. He was awesome and really helped me. He's like, hey, here's the deal. I was making really good money as a high school coach in Texas, especially for a first job out of high school. He's like, you're going to take a huge pay cut. I was like, I get it. So sent out 1,000 letters, 1,000 emails, and had one connection at Trinity Valley Community College. And if you're not familiar with junior college basketball in Region 14 in Texas, it's big time. Like at Trinity Valley, Nick Van Exel played there, Sean Kemp went there, Eddie Robinson was there. So big time program. So I went there. It was a unique situation. I was a part-time coach. Starting off, I got free room, free board, $5,000. And I was coaching the men and the women. The women had won, I think, 6 national championships. The men were really good. Hall of Fame coach and Leon Spencer. Incredible experience. About halfway through, the RD left. So then I got my raise to $15,000. And instead of a dorm room, I got a dorm apartment, which is about twice the size. So I was rolling at that point. But junior college guys, a lot of times they don't have there's a lot of extracurricular activities going on with the football team and the basketball team. So I was having to manage that as the RD, and coach the men's side and the women's side. So great experience. From there, parlayed that into a guy that recruited me out of high school. I never played for him, but Coach Van Landingham was the associate head coach at Texas State. So I got the assistant job at Texas State, the third assistant job. And then within a month, being at Texas State, the second assistant leaves, and Coach Davalos, the head coach, promotes me. So I was the youngest Division I assistant in the country, and I was the second assistant at the time, which was a phenomenal experience. I was there 3 years, and I had the itch to be a head coach. And at the time, there was Ave Maria University was a startup university. If you're not familiar with the story of the university and the school, Tom Monahan, who was the founder and owner of Domino's Pizza. He sold Domino's, owned the Detroit Tigers at one point. They won the World Series when he owned them. He sold Domino's for over $1 billion. And he's a big time man of faith and thought, how can I impact the world with my wealth? I don't want to die with my wealth. And he thought, like there's a lot of these secondary institutions and universities that are faith-based and name only. And he wanted to start one that was legitimate. So he started a Catholic university, Ave Maria University in Michigan. And then they had some zoning issues. And then he moved it down to Southwest Florida to Naples. And then it was a temporary campus. He bought the land in Naples. And if you've never been to Naples or Southwest Florida, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Bought the land there. And then a bald eagle landed on the land, so they couldn't build while the bald eagle was there. So Barron Collier, a company, came in Florida and Southwest Florida. You can't grow west because you're going to the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, whatever you're going to call the ocean there. So they came to him and said, hey, about 20 miles east, we want to develop these orange groves and make it into a town. We'll give you the land for free if you'll build your university there. So the bald eagle was still on the land that he owned. So he built his university there and started Ave Maria University. And that's where it became a school. And then they were starting athletics. And I had heard about it. I'm a Catholic as well. I love my faith. Put my name in the hat. And Mr. Scanlon, the AD at the time, somehow, some way, I was 27 and got a head college coaching job at 27 years old. Was there at Ave Maria 4.5 years, loved it. We really built that thing. Last year, we won over 20 games. We're top 15 in the country. And it really built it to a good spot. But to be honest with you, I was frustrated. I was frustrated kind of with the lack of resources. I was kind of chasing. I wanted to go back to Division I. My dream at the time was to be the head coach at Notre Dame. So I took the University of Texas at Tyler job. My wife and I, she was pregnant with our third child. We have 5 kids, but she was pregnant with our third child at the time. And we wanted to get closer to family. My family's in Dallas. Hers was in Oklahoma City. So I took the University of Texas at Tyler job. Was there for 6 years. We were Division III and then Division II. And then we got a new president and kind of a death sentence for a new coach, new president, new AD. So I lasted 1 year with the new president and then I was out. I got fired and I was really bitter, to be honest. I had the most wins in school history, had just come off the best season in school history, had a down year when we transitioned to Division II and no scholarships. And I was bitter with the college deal. I was like, man, I'm going to coach my kids. I've got 5 kids. I want to be a high school coach again. So I took the Alito High School job right outside of Fort Worth and loved it. But 2 weeks in, the teaching deal, once again, you'll see that theme. I was teaching 4 classes. I had the principal in there with an iPad, evaluating me once a week. And I told my wife, I said, hey, I can't do this. I can't teach. I love the coaching. I love the kids, but I'm gonna be a garbage man next year if I have to. I'm gonna podcast in and be out in the sun on the back of a truck and dumping the trash. I said, anything but teaching world history. And then I was fortunate enough, the Ave Maria job popped again and I was able to get it. So I've been back here since 2020. I've had a lot of success. We're perennial national tournament team, top 25 team in the country. And I love it. My priorities have changed with 5 kids. And I just want to be somewhere where I love the people I'm working with. I love my family's got a great situation. I feel like I found that here. So it's not the best job in the country, but it's a great job for me. So that's kind of my career in a nutshell.
So I want to go back a little bit and focus on your high school time and love the teaching time. But obviously, what were some things maybe early in your career that you learned as a high school assistant? And then when you became a high school head coach, after some of that collegiate experience, maybe what are some things you're like, hey, I didn't think about this as a college head coach, but you did learn it as a high school head coach?
Yeah, great question, John. So I think the main thing I learned as a young assistant, right, is like it doesn't matter what you know, it matters what your players. And I was the first assistant, the JV coach, and had all these ideas, and I was young and hungry and really wanted to implement all this stuff. And I think I was almost paralyzing our guys with information overload and trying to do too much. So that was a huge lesson there. And then learned a ton at my time in college, just, hey, simple and trying to get a ton of reps at keeping it simple and letting guys play free and loose. And then the second time I came back to high school, I think the thing I realized is like, man, there are a lot of good high school coaches. Everybody, like, kind of the perception is the best coaches in the world are professional. And then it kind of stair steps, college, high school. And I just think there are just unbelievable coaches at every level. And the coaching, I've coached my kids' 2nd grade travel basketball team. And if you love ball, your juices get flowing no matter if you're coaching 2nd graders or pros, so that was the main thing. I realized real quick going back is just how good the coaching is not really much different. What the main difference is just the players, the skill level, the athleticism, things like that. And then in Texas, one of the frustrating things about coaching in high school is the lack of shot clock in Texas. Like that just makes the game, like as much as I love basketball, it makes it a little bit boring when you play a team that they have a minute 30 possessions. You're scouting opponents and you're like, my gosh, or they're holding the ball late game. I'm a huge advocate for decision making for guys and players enjoying playing. And no one, and I get it, right? You're trying to be successful, you're trying to keep your job, and nobody wants, no player, no fan, nobody wants to watch you hold the ball into game, things like that. So that was my biggest frustration going back, is just almost how boring some of the teams were to watch. But then the biggest aha moment was, man, they're really good, freaking good high school coaches, really good coaches.
So, let's talk about, you go to Ave Maria and you're starting a program, right? Like you're trying to build it. I mean, I can't even imagine, right? Like there's probably all kinds of things you didn't think about, they didn't think about. So what were some of the challenges there? Like, getting the word out probably first of all, right? Like there's this new school, there's these
Yeah.
new place. But in getting players and starting to, build your culture and all that, what were some of your challenges when you got there?
Man, so a ton of challenges. So I will warn assistants that want to be head coaches. I was so eager to get a head job. I was shocked they offered it to me at 27. I was like, yes, I'll take it, and didn't ask the questions. And I think at certain points as a coach, you can almost get yourself into an impossible situation. I didn't ask about scholarships. I didn't ask about facilities. I didn't ask about anything. At the time, it was like you said, Todd, it was a brand new university, and we didn't have SACS accreditation. So we had the brand new university accreditation. I'm not sure what that is, but we didn't have regional accreditation. I didn't ask that question. Now we got it within a year of me being there, but that could have been a disastrous situation that I was just so eager to take a job that I didn't ask hard questions. Now, and then the job was hard at first, like trying to, I think the main thing, right? Like you're not accredited. Nobody's heard about you. And we're very remote. Like we are 30 minutes from the ocean, but our university in our town at the time, it's grown like crazy. But at the time, back in 2009, um, there were maybe 1,000 people that lived in the town outside of professors and students. So the remoteness of it, just it being new and me not asking the questions. And then also as a 27-year-old head coach, you just don't know what you don't know. So all those negatives on the flip side were really, really positive, because it's almost like I didn't have an assistant. I didn't ask that question. It's like, hey man, you just got to figure it out. Like I love telling my guys that they want to ask them, like, hey, figure it out. Like quit coming to me as a crutch for all your questions and your answers. Figure it out. And it was that way with my boss almost. He was like, hey, this is what you got. You got to figure it out. Now, the job, thank goodness, which is why we had success late, the job got a lot better. But man, it was a really, really tough job at first. And then, once we got accredited, got more resources, I was able to have a part-time assistant, things like that. We got it, and more scholarship money. We got it rolling there at the end. But yeah, there was a lot of just figure it out moments.
Well, I think I've been the same situation, right? You're eager, took a head job, like, and you're like, wait, I should have asked this, and this. So I think everybody's been there, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're, well, so now, all right, you leave there, you leave Ave Maria, you talked to us about your coaching path, and then what kind of made you come back? Obviously, you talked about your family and what's right for your family, and that becomes a big factor, right? As you get older and you have kids, and not 27, right? Where you got nothing to tie you down, you can just roll wherever. But so what was
Absolutely.
what kind of helped you make that final decision, say, I'm gonna go back and do that again?
Yeah, so a lot of different aspects. So the hard part of coming back is my wife's family is still in Oklahoma City. My family is still in Dallas. So you're leaving, you're very, very far away from family. However, there are a lot of positives, and us living here is one of those things, right? Like hindsight is 2020. When I left the University of Texas at Tyler is an incredible job, incredible place to live, beautiful arena. If you've ever seen the arena, gorgeous. But it was one of those things when I left, like 2 weeks after leaving, I was like, man, what have I done? Like being outside as a family, the sunshine, the weather. We're passionate about our faith, the faith aspect, interweaving the faith into your coaching. It's just like the relationships can be so much deeper when it's not just basketball, when it's about you're on a firmer foundation, and miss all of that. And then, yeah, so then coming back when it opened up, it was one of those things. My heart had kind of always missed it ever since we left. And I had told my wife after those 2 weeks, if that job ever opens again, I'm going after it. And when it opened up, she was super excited. I was super excited. And we went after it and we're fortunate enough to get it. And now the scary part, like anytime change is hard, you have that pit in your stomach, is just leaving family. Being so far away from family was the hard part. But it's a little bit about our town. It's still a small town, so 15,000 people, and it's what they call a golf cart community. So I either walk to work, take my golf cart to work, or ride my bike to work. I live about a mile from the field house, from Golisano Field House and the arena. So, and then our kids, instead of my wife having to do kid drop off, our kids ride their bikes to school. We're 30 minutes from the beach. The weather's phenomenal, except for the summers. So there's a lot of great things for our family that we were really excited to get back to, just kind of lifestyle wise.
Well, I guess he's never coming up here to coach then,
Yeah,
Jon.
I'm not gonna lie.
He's not coming up here. Maybe we should rethink this whole thing.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, if a job opens in Florida, you got to go after it. Somebody's got to live here. It might as well be me, huh?
Right.
So this is an interesting topic, and we have asked this very often, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from coaches that like this question, and you kind of hit on it, so I want to expand. So you're looking for a job, you kind of said you didn't ask the hard questions. You kind of said, in the beginning, and I remember I was a 28-year-old head high school coach, and you're just happy to have the job. But now when you're looking for jobs, what are those things you are looking for? What are those questions you are asking? And then really, how do you know this job is for me? This job does fit me? Because I think there's so many coaches looking for jobs, but they don't really know what to ask or what to look for.
Yeah, you hit it on the head there, Jon. So I think the first thing is just institutional alignment. Do you align with the administration? Because no matter how hard you work at it, no matter how good of a job you do, if you're not aligned with your administration, you're not going to have success. It's not possible. So for me, the second time around going after the job, I was definitely asking a lot of hard questions. Like it doesn't me. I don't have to have the best job in my league. I don't have the best job in my league, but I need to work with the best people in my league. So I want to love my boss, my athletic director. I want to love my president, the people I work with. And then I don't have to always agree with them, right? But like I want to respect who they are. I want to respect who they are as a human being and what their vision is for the school. And then I think if you're aligned like that and just similar mindset and you respect the people you work for, that makes up for a lot of things you per se don't have, right? If I don't have the biggest budget, don't have the best scholarships, maybe don't have the best facilities, the best resources, but man, you enjoy coming to work. Let me tell you a story about my athletic director, and this just tells you why I love my job so much. Like, since I've been back, we won 20 games every year except for one year. And the year we didn't, our two leading scorers got hurt and we lost 8 straight games. And then for an AD, most ADs, right? Like ADs I've worked for in the past, like I would be worried about my job. So we started 12-2, we lost 8 straight and finished the year horrific, finished 14-14 on the year. My AD in that eight, I think it was lost 7 in a row. He texts me and says, "Hey, I believe in you. I love you. And if there's anybody that can lead this program, you're the guy I want doing it." To me, like I don't have to have a great scholarship situation. I don't have to have a great facility situation if I have a guy like that leading me and a guy that believes in me. Because I've had situations where maybe you feel like you had some good years and then you don't have a good year and they look to get rid of you and you're kind of looking over your shoulder. That's not a fun place to coach at. So for me, those are the questions. I'm trying to get to know who my boss is, what my boss is about. I'm talking to people about my boss. Is that a guy I love working for ADs that have been coaches. I think they get it, right? Like this is a hard deal and a lot of luck is involved with being successful in this thing. You have to stay injury free. You have to have some bounces go your way, some calls go your way. You have to get lucky on the type of kids as a high school coach that are in your district or come to your program. As a college coach, a lot of times you got to get lucky with some guys you get, right? We all hit in recruiting, we all miss in recruiting. Like there is a lot of chance and luck involved. And I think if you have a former coach as your boss that gets that, that's a great spot. So for me, just people that believe in me, they're going to be with me through good times and bad times. Those are the questions I'm trying to, at this point in my life with 5 kids, I want more stability as opposed to just, I don't really care about chasing the dream as much anymore.
Well, I think that's a great point too, because you talked about injuries and all that, but I think when you know you have that, it kind of helps you make decisions too. It makes you a little bit more clear on decisions. You're not trying to find and guess what the best way to do it is, right?
It does. And Todd, let me interrupt you there.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a decision we made this year, and I could have not ever done it with former ADs I've worked for, but I had so much security in the AD I worked for. So we were probably the only college program in the country. We returned every single guy. Nobody graduated, nobody transferred. We didn't recruit anybody. And we had won 22 games, had a great year. I made the national tournament. And then, so we were running it back. So really, the logical thing to do would be, hey, do the exact same thing you did, and let's just get a little bit better and try to have a little bit more success. I said, screw it, we're going to play completely different than we've ever played defensively. And I went after Crutchfield, Coach Crutch, who's at Nova Southeastern. If you're familiar with Division II basketball, the success they've had, West Liberty,
No doubt.
his tree. So I went all in on face guarding and pressing the whole game with the team I was running it back with because of the security I felt. So you're exactly right, Todd. Like it frees you up and just making decisions and trying things out and kind of being more bold and kind of coaching more to your personality instead of just doing the safe thing. You can really, really coach to what you believe. And I was able to do that because of my alignment with the administration.
So you mentioned a couple times, you get older, you have kids, right? I have two daughters, and finding that balance, right? Your priorities change, right? You love ball, right? You said it. I love coaching ball, but then your priorities change when you have kids and they're doing things. We talked before we got in there where your kids are, and they're kind of doing all
Yeah.
kinds of different stuff today, right? So how do you go about finding that balance now between the family and the coaching, right? Because we all know in season coaching, there's a lot that goes into it, right? You're gone, you're on these long bus rides or whatever. So how do you kind of work to find that balance throughout the year?
Yeah, so I think number one, have an incredible wife. And I'm blessed. I've got Jessica's an incredible wife. But even more than that, I don't know that you can actually have balance. But what I think you can do is if you have a family that's willing, is just make the program part of your family where they're almost seamless. And then it's the same thing, right? So during the season, we spend a lot of time, you're gone from home a lot. But if your kids are at the gym for practice, if you're able to do that, I've got a very unique situation. They can ride their bikes over or walk or whatever and come to practice. My wife's at practice. The guys are over at my house all the time, coming over for breakfast or dinner or hanging out, or when they're sick, they come see my wife for medicine, things like that. Like she's kind of a hippie in some ways. She does all the holistic stuff. So giving them all that stuff. But so just making your family a part of your program and your program a part of your family, I think is great. And then I think also prioritizing your family and scheduling. One of the beauties of being a head coach that you don't get as an assistant. Hey, my kids on Saturday have soccer games at 8, 10, and noon. We're probably going to practice Saturday afternoon so I can go to my kids' soccer games, or we might have a 7 a.m. practice on Saturday so I can go to the soccer games, and just trying to be organized in your scheduling, looking ahead with your kids' schedules and your schedule and doing the best you can for both. I'm not going to be able to make every event my kids have, but I'm going to do my best to try to make as many events as I can. And I have that freedom with being a head coach and with scheduling. So I think that makes it work as well. Another thing that I've think matured on in my coaching career as I've gotten older, I'm 44 now, is the value of efficiency and the value of guys. I want my guys at the end of the year excited to come to the gym and excited to continue to be playing basketball and not making it a grind. Like we need to take off days, and more so even big time believe in off days for the physical components, but even more so mentally. That's more important. Just getting away, being efficient with your time. I think late in the year, off days are a lot of times are maybe more important than practice days, getting away. So being strategic too with just being efficient, and maybe being strategic in your off days could be on some of those days you have when maybe your kid's got a big event. If you were planning out your week, like, hey, I was either going to take an off day on Tuesday or Wednesday this week. My kid has a event or a game Tuesday night. All right, we'll take our off day Tuesday night.
Well, I mean, that might even be a resume skill. You got 5 kids and you're making that schedule and trying to balance with you. That should be right on top of the front of the resume. Your
It's
wife
a
or
lot of communication with the
yeah,
wife all
your
the
wife
time,
or
looking at calendars.
I got 2 and I got a calendar up there in the kitchen. It's full of stuff. I imagine what you got going on.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so let's go call this halftime adjustments here. Let's talk about your off-season stuff. I guess kind of what are you allowed to do? You know, everybody's different, right? I'm D3.
Yep.
We're not really allowed to do anything. Here's the gym, go play, right? We send out our workouts and stuff. So what are you doing with your guys on your strength and conditioning, your skill work, setting that up to kind of keep that momentum going from the previous year or get better from the previous year into the next year. 'Cause you think it's a long time, but then it comes real quick. You're like, oh, we're back at school. We got workouts, we got lifting, we got conditioning, all that. So what do you kind of do over that off period and off season to get you guys ready?
Yeah, so we are an NAI institution. So for the listeners, you have Division One basketball, which the majority of the people are familiar with. They have 13 full scholarships, and then now with the new house settlement, they might have 15 with the rev share. And then you have after that, you have Division Two, which has up to 10. An institution can give you 0 or up to 10 scholarships. 10's your max. NAI, which we are, you have 8, up to 8, anywhere from 0 scholarships up to 8. You have Division Three, which is non-scholarship, but they can really do a great job packaging in other ways. And that's your 4-year level of basketball. So we give out what we call stacking scholarships. So you get an academic scholarship, you get an athletic scholarship, your FAFSA, and then we get you a financial aid package. And that's how it works. So we're an NAI institution. And part of those rules in NAI for your off season, you get 24 weeks during the season and you have a start date. So typically, I think this year our start date was like September 26th, if I remember right. It's typically the end of September. And then in that on period, that your in season period, there are no hours restrictions like the NCAA. So basically it's just fair game, just coach your team how you see fit. Then in the off season, like your question was, Todd, what are you allowed to do? So strength conditioning is unlimited year round. There's no limit to strength conditioning for NAI institutions. So we lift 3 days a week, preseason, during season, and in the off season. And then part of that is during the season, we're going to tweak it a little bit for maybe recovery days if we're beat up or we have a game the next day, or activation lifts, things like that. So we're lifting year round while our guys are here. Some NAIs will keep their guys throughout the summer. We don't, our guys go home. Outside of that 24 weeks, in the NAI, you're not allowed to be in the gym with them at all. So it's very similar. I was Division III and a Division II coach, very similar to Division III as well, is you have to basically, you give them their off-season development programs, and it's kind of on them to do that on their own. Another thing I do in the preseason prior to that September 26th, I want them very specific on what they're doing, the plan we give them. And in the off season, postseason, we give them plans as well. But I'll also tell them, hey, this is your bike riding time. If you want to go home and have a trainer, if you want to try a different strength conditioning system, I let them do their own thing in the postseason as well. Not while they're with us, but while they're home in the summer. Because just the mental aspect, right? Like if I'm going to follow coach's strength conditioning program for 4 years, that 3-month break, them doing whatever they want, strength conditioning wise, going with another trainer, another philosophy, I'm fine with that as well. So that's how we do our off seasons.
And doing a research, I believe you have strength and conditioning background a little bit, right? So
I do.
I always like to ask this too because it's important, right? I mean, I have a PE background, right? So, you're lifting and you're conditioning in season, right? And again, finding that balance of, right, well, we got to keep our guys fresh and this and that, but we can't be, you did all that work in the off season. You're strong. You kind of getting your body ready, right? It's a big part of the season of maybe it's mobility, maybe it's just maintaining. What do you guys like to do in the season to kind of find that balance, but maintain those gains you had and also keep guys healthy?
Yeah, so a lot of things I'll do is I'll ask questions, and I'll ask them not to just everybody, right? The guys I really trust, like, hey, who are our everyday guys? Who's really, really tough? Who's a worker? Who loves this? And I'll say, hey, Jack, what do we need? How are your bodies feeling? How much can I push you in the weight room? and I'll adjust from there. As a coach, if you don't have a game for a week, I don't need to ask that question, right? If we're two days out from a game, I might ask that question. If we're one day out, I'm not going to ask that question. Or if it's the day after a game, I'm not going to ask that question because I kind of know going in what we're going to do. So, for example, if we have a scheduled lift the day before a game, that's going to be an activation lift for us. So that's going to be really light, really fast, and low volume. So not many reps. We're going light, fast, just more activating, getting their CNS to be activated. If it's a day after a game, that's going to be a big time recovery day for us. So probably a lot of stretching, a lot of foam rolling. If we're doing some movements, it might be full, like really working full range of motion, things like that. And then if we're a week out, that's when in season we're really getting after it. 4 or 5 days out, getting after it. If we're 2 days out, that'll be where I ask the captain, the kid I really trust, hey, what can we do today? How much can I push you guys? How's your body feeling? Another thing I suggest for all coaches is keep the weights high. As long as movement's good during season, just decrease the volume. So, for example, let's say you're in a hypertrophy phase right after your postseason, after you take your couple weeks off, you're trying to really grow their muscles. So your reps are higher. You're more 8 to 10, 3 to 4 sets, 8 to 10 reps. And then preseason, you're 4 sets, 5 reps. During season, it might look like, hey, you've got 4 sets of 2 reps. We're loading that barbell up. We're making sure our movement quality is high, but our volume is really low. So we have like 8 to 10 total reps. That way they're not getting sore. They're not getting beat up. So that's kind of how we do it. And it's hard to do this over a podcast. There's a lot of science to it, and there's a lot of art to it too, which is kind of getting that give and take with your players and I think you said this, Todd, making sure they feel good. That's the main thing I want. I want them feeling good going into a game, feeling good about their bodies, because I think they play better. So here's a funny story. I was going to not do an activation lift going into our conference tournament because I knew, man, like we had a bye, but then we had back-to-back games. We were going to play Friday, and if we were fortunate enough to win Friday, we were going to play Saturday. So I was like, we're not even going to do it. And then Jack comes up to us. He goes, Coach, we're doing our activation lift today. I'm like, he asked that during practice. I said, so I flipped the script and we did our activation lift that day. So there's kind of the art of it, doing the give and take. The guys wanted it. They wanted that activation lift, maybe mentally to feel good about going into that game the next day in the conference tournament.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I always find that stuff real interesting. I always look at we'll take our girls and do yoga or just, kind of like you said, get some activation going, and you realize like how important full range mobility is. You just watch some of them do it. Now, I'm old, I'm 43. I'm not being doing all that, as well as they do, but like you can kind of see it as you go through of, oh yeah, we got to work on this and we got to work on that. That's a little thing throughout the season that makes a big difference because of, it's all a chain effect of injuries. You get one thing wrong and then it goes all the way up. So that was a really good answer, Coach. That's interesting. I like it.
So, as we begin the second half with all of our guests, we focus on a specific topic. And for you, it's going to be mostly offensive flow motion. And I told you off the air, I had heard you somewhere else. And just your ideas on offensive basketball and flow and movement were fascinating. So, I wanted to bring it to our listeners as well. My first part of this, though, is kind of how has your offensive philosophy evolved in your career? Kind of what have you changed? What has stayed the same? And kind of for you, how can coaches kind of develop their own philosophy?
Yeah, so it's ever evolving, like with all of us as coaches, right? And I think a big part is the players you have and their skill sets. And I think when I was younger, how maybe I wasn't good is tweaking my offensive system to what my guys are good at. And as just like anything, right? The longer you do something, I feel like I'm a better coach now than I was when I started my career. You evolve and you get a little better at your craft. And I think that's probably the area I've gotten better at is looking at my team in the preseason and saying, hey, this is where John is really good. This is where Kyle is really good. How do we get them to spots and let them play to things they're good at? As a player, I always loved playing free and not being joysticked by my coach with offensive sets. And I was fortunate enough to play for coaches that were more flow or motion or read and react based. We had our after timeout actions and sets or dead ball sets, but that was my favorite way to play. So that's how I wanted to coach because I wanted my guys to really enjoy it. So in our offensive system, we have certain things we believe in. We believe in shot selection, and we want to be as the most efficient offensive team we can be. And that comes down to, for us, we're trying to get as many shots as we can in the paint and at the rim, specifically at the rim, and then shooting the three with guys that can make it at a high clip. Another thing I really believe in that I've even really pushed the needle on more is playing ahead of the defense. So most teams are extremely well coached, and most defenses are really hard to score against when they're set. So we want to play ahead of the defense and we want to push and try to play advantage basketball, make, miss, turnover, doesn't matter. So I've really pushed the needle. We led the country in scoring this year. Last year we were third in the country in scoring. We've been led the country in threes both years. And I think part of that is because our possessions, but we're also very efficient, right? Like we were 40% from three 2 years ago. We were 39% from three. This year, we were 49% from the field, 48 this year. So really efficient while also playing fast and giving our guys a lot of freedom and flow and decision making. And the way you train that is at the beginning of the year, all I'm coaching them on the first couple weeks, because we don't really have anything in, so you can't coach them on any actions per se, right, in your motion, is I'm just coaching shot selection. And that's what we're coaching. Hey, when I'm huddling them, if we're starting our 4 possession and we're starting with a half-court possession, I'm saying, hey, here's the deal. I know it's the first practice. Another thing I believe strongly in is live play. You have to if my team has more possessions in by game one than your team has, I'm going to have an advantage over your team, right? Because we've had a lot more possessions to play together, a lot more possessions of decision making. So we're playing from day one, even though we don't have anything in offensively, right? We're playing from day one, and I'm pulling together. Hey, I know we have nothing in, fellas. Here's what I want. We're getting an open three, or we're getting a shot in the paint. That's it. Go play and figure it out. And then we'll play there. And then as we start developing our actions, we're going to layer our motion. So the first day in our shooting drills, it might be we call it burn. It might be pass and cut. So in our shooting, we got 2-man shooting drills. I'm pass, cut, get a layup, and then exit cut. Everybody's getting a shot, and we're teaching our offense through shooting drills, and that's how we trick our guys. We don't do 5-on-0. We do shooting drills. It could be 2-man shooting, 3-man shooting, 4 or 5-man shooting, but we're doing shooting drills, which is our 5-on-0 or 2-on-0 or whatever. But everybody's always getting an exit cut three. So then the next day we put in our burn concept. So it's, hey, when I'm huddling them, hey, burn's what we got in. When you pass, you have to burn, right? Once I feel we're good at that, we might add in our next layer to our motion, which might be, all right, now you can slice cut, which if I pass, it's a straight cut to the ball side corner, and we're going to hold the backside and open up 2 gaps. So you have 2 options. Now you can burn or you can slice cut, and then we're going to play out of that. Then once we start stacking again, all right, now you can go to screen away action, and we call that split. On screen away action, I'm going to screen in our shooting drills, which is our offensive drills. We're teaching all that, right? The screener, hey, you can go and slip it. You can set it. Hey, if you're receiving it, you can reject it. You can curl it. You can use it. There's all these options, and here's the why. And then we'll play that live, 3-on-3 live, and then we'll build it up to 5-on-5. And now, hey, in our motion, all right, now here's the deal. You got to go split action. You got to go burn. You got to go slice. And then we just keep layering our motion like that throughout the year. And we go and we hit it back with our shooting drills and our daily vitamins every day. We're hitting those offensive shooting drills and getting those guys reading and reacting. And then our small-sided games, which we're scripting. All right, now we got to play out of a split action. We got to play out of a pin action, out of a football is our terminology for a DHO. And then, yeah, that's how we're working all year. And we were playing a lot just out of them making their own decisions. And another thing I think I've grown in, instead of having so many rules, now it's like, hey, here's our default. So offensively, defensively, like for example, defensively, our default is going to be on screens. We're going to, instead of chasing, we're going to go ball side. However, I'm going to let you figure it out based on personnel, right? Like, and on film or during the game, hey, John, why did you chase him there? Hey, coach, man, incredible shooter. Love it, right? As long as you just don't get screened. And I've developed that philosophy offensively too. Instead of having so many rules, we're going to have our defaults, which is essentially our rules. But I'm going to let you go off of that as long as you can give me a really good reason why. And I'm going to ask you, hey, why did you not, on our split action, why did we not get one dude to the rim there? And whatever answer they give, well, hey, the corner was wide open as well. He cut to the top. I saw the corner. I wanted to exit cut to the corner, give him space for him to drive the closeout. Love it. So we have our defaults, but at the same time, I give the guys a lot of freedom to make their own decisions as well.
So I want to follow up before I get to the next question here. So obviously you're teaching that, right? You're making different reads. How are you, I guess, when you're like, say you're watching film of a practice, or you got a kid coming in brand new, right? Maybe he hasn't done that before, right? Sometimes the screen away action, especially we do a lot of screen away, it's a lost skill a little bit because a lot of schools
Yes.
don't do it, right? So how are you kind of, I guess, helping them get it, whether it be through film, whether, obviously you're doing your small-sided games, but they might make the wrong read at the time. So how are we getting it to kind of flow and reinforce those actions, maybe off the court, and helping them kind of take that next step and make those reads?
Yeah, so I think that's where watching your team, the more you can watch them on film, watch them in the preseason and figure out what they're good at, you can then tell guys like, hey, you're Todd, you're just a burn guy. If you don't set good screens, anytime you pass, I want you to burn. And then another thing too, like I kind of give them some ways out per se offensively. It's like, hey, if you get to the paint, or we have to finish every cut, every drive. So you're going to finish that in the charge circle. If you don't know what to do, all you got to do, we call it cold, it's our back screen action, is just go back screen somebody. Like if you're lost and I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, instead of standing in the paint, just find a guy at the 3-point line and go headhunt and back screen. So I give them a lot of outs. Hey, Todd, you're brand new. You don't know what to do. Burn every time. Just every time you pass, burn. And then I simplify it for those guys because you're exactly right. Not every player's IQ is the same. And even if you have somebody it doesn't happen much in college anymore, but for 4 years, or a high school kid for 4 years, they're still going to be there are still some guys' IQ won't be very high, or ladies, their IQ just won't get to the level of other players. So you've got to simplify it for them. I'm never going to simplify our shooting drills, our daily vitamins. They're going to know how to do everything. But in live play, I'm going to get in their ear and say, hey, as of right now, Todd, I just want you burning every time. Or Todd, I want you, I want you pin screening every time you're off ball. Things like that.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, all right, you always want to play at pace, but now you have a dead ball, right? Or
Yep.
teams adjust, right? I don't know. I've done things where, okay, we want this point guard, we're just going to jam them every time, try to slow up the pace, whatever it may be. Coaches are smart, like you said. We have real good coaches. They make adjustments. So,
Yep.
On dead ball situations, kind of how are you getting into that flow? Are you talked about your concepts, but are we, if this happens, then this happens, you know what I mean? Like, or are we going to run a set maybe to get it going and then play off of that? Kind of what are you doing on those dead ball situations?
Yeah, so one thing, and I think the more you kind of trust your team, the more you can go to this. But one thing I've went to the past couple of years that I really like we're going to huddle after every dead ball, every free throw. Anytime we can, we're going to huddle, and then it's on our point guard to call our next action. For our anytime something breaks down, we're in motion, which is what we work on 95% of the time. We do have a lot of actions, right? And a lot of our actions are just our terminology, like our terminology, and we just stack our terminology. So for example, for us, like our point guard he can say cold slice. So cold for us is a back screen, and everybody in the program knows what cold is, and then everybody knows what a slice cut is. So if he calls cold slice, all he's going to do is that point guard's going to throw it to the slot, and then that guy's going to back screen him and then slice cut. And now you open up a triple gap for that guy in the slot. So all our actions are just stacked terminology, if that makes sense.
For sure.
And we name everything. So what we do is we're fanatical. Any dead ball, they've got to huddle, they've got to touch, and our point guard's got to call an action. So if you watch us play on film, very rarely am I calling an action unless it's nut cutting time, right? We really need a bucket, or it's after in a timeout. Otherwise, every dead ball, we are starting with an action, but it's our point guard calling it. And it might be something super simple. Like for us, Curry is just a stagger, and we're playing out that stagger. You can reject it, you can curl it, you can use it, we can slip it. So he might just huddle us, say, hey, we're in Curry, and then we're right in. The initial action for us is a stagger. We don't, probably 95% of the time, you're not going to score off your initial action versus well-coached teams. And then we are not pulling it out. From there, we're right into our read and react and our flow. And I think the more random, the better. And the more random with purpose is the hardest thing to guard. So that's how we're playing. We're playing, and it's super fast. I tell them all the time, hey, early action, early action, early action. So when we watch film, if even from a dead ball situation, let's say we're in cold, which for us is a continuous back screen call. It's kind of like the old school Wisconsin Bo Ryan stuff. We'll start that action, which is crazy. We start it as that point guard might be at the opposite volleyball line. Like we're already hitting people because we want them moving, head on a swivel. We want chaos before we even get in the scoring area. So we talk about it all the time. Early opposite, early action, early opposite, early action, early opposite, early action. We want that ball getting to the opposite side of the floor as fast as we can. And then we want that action starting as that's our screening action, our cutting action. As soon as we get space established, we're starting our actions.
So I'm guessing you have a lot of conversations with your point guards and really work with them to kind of get on that same page.
Yeah, I do. And then a lot of times in practice, right? Like, hey, I don't like that initial act because we press and because of the way we want to play with pace. We're always going up and down at a minimum 2 trips, majority of the time 3 to 4. But when that dead ball happens, I'm not ever stopping it. When that dead ball happens, hey, Todd, that initial possession, why did you get us in that action? What was your thought? And if you can give me a good reason, I'm all about it because I don't really care as much what we run as with the intent we run it with the pace we run it with the execution. And if you're Todd, if you're calling that, I just feel like you're way more bought in to make that action really work, right? And than you are if I'm calling it. But maybe I didn't like it. Like, hey, Miles has scored 3 straight times on the block. Why would you not have went punch Miles there instead of Curry? And I'm having those conversations throughout the whole practice, just trying to get them where they think like a coach and they're thinking the game, because in big games, they can't hear you because of the crowd, right? You might have laryngitis like Jon has. That happens. Your players they got to be able to run the offense themselves. And they love, like in our exit meetings, our guys say, Coach, it's the most fun I've ever had in my entire career because they feel like it's theirs. I'm not micromanaging. What do you want to run? Hey, run it. Why did you run that? I like it. All right, hey, I don't like that call. And here's why. Hey, Jay, we've taken 2 bad shots. I'm going to take your freedom to call an action away if we continue to take bad shots. And just having those conversations, letting them take ownership, they have fun. I think you're harder to guard because they're playing more free, more loose, more aggressive. And as long as you're getting the results you want, which is your shot quality, right? The type of shot that you want, man, who really cares what you run? In my opinion, I don't care what we run. I could give 2 craps as long as we're getting the type of shot I want.
So I wanna kind of tweak this one, and I want to ask how you now balance that with your defensive ideals, right? And kind of creating that flow on offense and creating the shots you want. Kind of let's look, and obviously we could do a whole podcast on this too, but how do you kind of pair that then with the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah. So in the past, we played really fast 2 years ago, and we were very traditional defensively. So we were like, probably a lot of your listeners aren't as old as I am, but the old school typewriter, right? You type, and it goes right back. That's how we played. We were very grinded out defensively, and we're gone on offense. I wanted to marry our 2 systems and make them very, very similar. So I wanted to play fast and aggressive on both sides of the ball. So we put in where we're pressing the entire game, make, miss, doesn't matter. We are pressing. And the way I marry those is we're going multiple trips. So we have to always work our transition from offense to defense. For us, that's a huge deal. Now, on the flip side, what makes it really hard to work on that motion offense is you're playing in chaos a lot because you're going against your defense. So it makes it hard to get quality half-court possessions because we're pressing each other the whole practice. So when I really want to focus in on half-court offense, we'll play 2 trips the entire practice. So, for example, we're going to start in a half-court dead ball situation, and we'll start them in different scenarios, right? Like they might be circling the wagons at midcourt, and I say, Todd, and I throw the ball to a random area. Todd could be our 4-man. We don't really have positions in our program, but you might have, I'm throwing it to a random dude, not just the point guard. I want everybody to be able to initiate offense, everybody figure out how to go and attack space. Or some days we might start that possession, we're circling the wagons inside the paint, and then boom, I'm throwing it to the 3-point line. John's got to sprint out and get it. Everybody gets the space. So we're getting that initial possession with non-chaos, traditional, because we guard once you beat our press and our pressure, we're guarding you man traditionally in the half court. We just don't get that much because we're pressing you the whole practice. So we'll start in a half court situation. And then no matter what happens in that half court situation, we go one more trip and then we'll kill it. So that's how I do more of our offensive days or our offensive segments. And then if we're going defensive segments, we're trying to make it chaotic and we're going more possessions, right? 3-4 possessions, things like that.
All right. So second in scoring 2 years ago, first in scoring this season. Obviously, your goal is to play fast. You talked about all those kind of different things, but let's talk about like how you're evaluating that, how you're assessing it, right? So maybe some of your standards offensively, whether it's a stat, well, it could be any number of things. And then you mentioned shot selection a number of times. Maybe talk a little bit about that and like what you're telling your players of this is a good shot, whether it's ABC. Some people are grades, whatever it may be. But just overall, how you're kind of assessing those standards for offense and how you're being successful and how you're being successful.
Yeah, so we were first in scoring this year, third last year. However, that's not our goal. Like I tell our guys all the time, our goal is just to get a great shot. And I don't care when that comes in the shot clock. It can be first 5, last 5, anywhere in between. I don't care as long as we get a good shot. Now, what I am crazy fanatical about is how we get the ball across half court, right? The pace we're playing up the floor with, because we talk about it all the time. Hey, just keep knocking on that rock, right? You're going to keep knocking against the rock, and eventually at some point it's going to crack. Against a well-coached team, even though we push it on you every possession, we're over half court in 3 seconds. We're not going to score in the first 5, but maybe 1 out of every 10 possessions. But when that rock cracks, that's a huge deal. We go get a free layup. We go get a wide open pitch ahead 3. That's a big deal to us. We're getting an unbelievable shot early. So for us, it's shot quality and it's pace up the floor. So we talk about it all the time. Pace, pace, pace. And it's pace with the ball up the floor. And it's pace with our early actions. It's pace with our cuts and things like that. I don't have a shot selection scoring system that a lot of coaches do. Ours is all conversationally based. And on film, we're going to show good shot, bad shot. Like you are going to be evaluated in front of all your teammates on good shot, bad shot after every practice and after every game. We're going to watch that and we're going to talk about it and we'll have that conversation. I take emotions out of it. I'm easily emotional in practice and in games. I think I'm pretty good at being very, very calm in film and just having conversations. Todd, did you like that shot? Coach, I didn't like it. All right, I didn't like it either, right? Or, hey, Todd, that was a horrific shot. If you continue to shoot that, we will not win another game the rest of the year. Or it might be, hey, Todd, what'd you think about that shot? Coach, I liked it. I had made my last 3. I know it was contested, but I was feeling it. I like that answer. Hey, it's rhythm and flow. And just having those conversations and then just emphasize, you are what you emphasize, right? So we're emphasizing in practice. If anybody ever walks the ball up the floor, I'm blowing the whistle like, hey, we don't do that. That's not us. Try it again. We don't do that. And just emphasizing the pace the ball gets up the floor. And there are certain drills we do every day too. We do a drill called touch the wall. So it's like the old school transition drill where you call the names. You got everybody lined up across the free throw line and everybody lined up on the baseline. You throw it to the team on the baseline. Hey, John, and John touches the baseline, and then we're in an advantage situation. We start like that, but then we'll play it 4, 5, 6 trips. We'll play it for a 3-minute game. Whoever shoots the ball last or turns it over has to go touch the wall. So you're constantly in a 5-on-4 advantage, and then you don't even have to talk about pace. If they want to win, they're trying to pitch the ball ahead and get early good shots while they have an advantage situation offensively. And I think that's a great drill for transition defense. Also unbelievable. I started that drill for transition D, and the more I've done it, the more I think, man, it's actually a better transition offensive drill than it is a transition defensive drill. As good as it is for defense, it's better for your offense.
Actually, I really like that. And you're talking about those shot selection conversations. I always find those entertaining at times, especially the first couple. Yeah, or there's a debate. Yeah, that's a good shot.
Yeah.
Like you're sitting in the back of the assistant coach. No,
yeah, no,
that wasn't a good shot. But
and we'll laugh about them too. It's easier to laugh after a win, but we'll laugh at we'll clip out some horrific shots and we'll laugh about them as a group. You can't do that after a loss, but if you're on like a couple game winning streak, you can laugh about those and say, hey, fellas, I know we've been winning. And that continues. Like you can't win big games doing that. We have to value every possession.
So, as we get to our last two segments, the first one we call 30-second timeout. It's kind of your chance to talk about whatever you want, your family, your program, something you want our listeners to know. Turn the tables on Todd and I. As Todd would usually say, your dime, your dance floor.
Love it. Yeah, I'm going to turn it on you guys because I always love learning. What is if you could only have one belief as a coach or one tenet that you kind of foundation you stand on, what would that be for coaching? What's your one core principle, core belief, anything like that?
That's a tough, kind of a tough one. I think
It is. Yeah, yeah.
I got a decent answer here. I mean,
Excellent.
mine's always been, I guess there's no good way. Well, there is some kind of ways, but it's the controlled and uncontrolled effort, right? Like
Yep.
you talk about, I'm big on pace, right? I mean, everybody's got different athleticism, this and that, but like, I've always wanted to use, and we've talked to some coaches, Coach Brost at Wallenbrook by us, but like almost like Lovie Smith was up here, right, with the Bears, and he would call them loafs. You didn't get to the ball, you didn't, so like I kind of have that of, hey, if you're not beating your person down the court or sprinting down the court, you're tired or you're just not giving enough effort. That's kind of one of my things. It's just, and again, it's hard to quantify, I guess, numbers wise. But if we're constantly, like you said, pounding at that rock, giving effort, the rock's eventually going to crack. And to me, that's the things you can control, right? You can't control whether you made a shot. You can't control the ref made a bad call. I think we focus on those a lot. Whereas if you're out there just pounding the rock every time, I think that's a cumulative effect of you're going to be pretty successful in what you do.
I think it's funny. I was going to say control the controllables, but I'm going to go a different way since Todd kind of talked about that. And I am going to say, remember that they're people. I think when I was a young head coach, I think you're so obsessed with, the X's and O's and making sure that your assistant knows this and whatever. But I think it's um, having this be my 10th year as a head coach. I think it's remembering my assistants, remembering my players, remember everyone's people. Everyone's got a lot of things going, whether it's one of my assistants, their parents passed away during the season, or, one of my players, you'd be surprised how often if you just ask them, how's it going, that they might start crying or they might say, Coach, my grandma's dying, and my mom hasn't been in the house because she's taking care of her. And you're like, well, no, now I understand why you've been off for 3 days. So I think it's important to remember their people. And obviously, I'm not saying to anybody listening that I don't have very high standards and expect the most from everybody. But I think it's important as a coach to remember that they're people, and sometimes it's okay if they have a bad day, if you really know what's going on behind the scenes. And maybe that's the social worker in me, but I think that is definitely something I've learned.
All right, so last segment here, quick hitters, fun rapid fire questions. Not necessarily always always basketball, but just having some fun to end the episode. First one, what age do you think players should start playing with a shot clock?
Oh,
12. All right.
Okay, well, real quick, why? Because Todd and I are big shot clock guys, and Illinois is about to get it. So why do you think 12?
I think because at 12 they start figuring basketball out a little bit. They're more just having kids that are 12. That's kind of at the point they're starting to get it. They're coordinated. They can actually play before 12 too. Like you don't really need one because they're going to turn it over if they keep if they hold the ball for more than 30 seconds. And I don't even care if at 12 you have a 45-second shot clock. I just think something where now they're skilled enough, they can hold, they can stall ball. That's just not allowed. And then plus, like, man, we want to be the best country in the world at this. We want our players to be the best they can at this. Increase their decisions. The only way, and with late shot clock situations, maybe a kid that the coach doesn't let them do certain things, like under 5, like it's your world, you got to go make a play. And I think for growth for players, that is huge. Just having to figure it out. You got to go make a play for yourself or others when you catch that ball under 5. And that's a huge development piece. Just like I think one-on-one is one of the best things you can do for your game. I think playing with a shot clock is the same thing because now you got dribble pass shoot situations and scenarios when you got to get outside your comfort zone. When if you don't have a shot clock, you can just give it up to the best player again.
Sorry, Todd, I went off our quick hitter format there for a second.
That's all right. That's all right.
Best part, and you just named a bunch, but what's the best part about living in Florida in the off season?
I think just the access to, you can be outside every day, the kind of the healthy lifestyle, the sunshine, super healthy for you, 30 minutes from the beach. It's an incredible place to live.
All right, your personal favorite maybe type of workout or like go-to lift or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'm passionate about my fitness, and I don't really have like I used to be passionate into CrossFitting, competed with CrossFit. I love it because of the efficiency of it, having children. So I love all types of workouts, but if I was going to just narrow it down to doing one thing the rest of my life, if I had to choose, I think it'd be CrossFit just because of the multiple benefits for an older guy like me and just the efficiency of it, where I can go
Right.
be a great husband, a great father, and go spend time at my job.
What's the most undertaught skill in youth basketball, in your opinion?
Decision making. And I think shot selection too. Like, man, I'm very intimate into this because I've got a lot of kids playing travel basketball. It's, man, so watching the games is so hard just because of every kid just values scoring and they don't understand how to play, valuing shot selection, team basketball, and making the right decision, right? Shoot, shot, drive, or pass decision.
Yeah, and I find my daughter's in fifth grade. I find it's hard too at those younger ages because there's just not as much space, right?
It
They
is.
know you can't shoot, so it's hard to even teach that. I think that's part of the problem. But like you said, I think maybe shot clock kind of helps that because it's faster, gets the defense out of position, things like that. One thing you're studying to get better as a coach this offseason.
Yeah, just what we do every offseason, we choose three teams offensively and three teams defensively, and we like do a deep dive on them. So we'll watch 10 to 15 games and break down everything they do, my assistant and I. So we're going to start that we still need we still got to get three more guys in this class. So as soon as this class is done, then we'll start that summer project, and what we do is we each draft, right? So like, all right, so we don't double dip on teams. I get first pick for the team I'm going to study offensively. I'm choosing Alabama. All right, Paul, he gets to choose. He's taking St. Louis. So now St. Louis is off the board. Alabama's off the board. And we go like that offensively and defensively. And then we'll each pick certain special situations to study. Like one thing I'm kind of fascinated about now is tips. I saw Dallas Baptist in the Division II Elite Eight game. Like they started with everybody on the offensive side of the ball, like hedging all their bets. I think they had one player, yeah, one player on the deep for a defensive tip, and all three were over there on offense. They were hedging all their bets that they were going to go get
Yeah.
that thing and go score. Which so that made me think, man, I'm gonna go in on synergy and just watch every first possession and just see all the different jump ball situations.
I feel like you better have a really tall guy that you're confident in winning that one.
Man, no doubt, no doubt. And they did. That was I got to call Blake on that. That was unique.
Or a guy who can jump, right? Like something that, well, that like in the same vein, I always find it interesting too. Like, put some plays out there every once in a while, like the football inbounds, right? That's been using,
Yeah.
was it Denver, right? Would use one or the other day from half court from a slob, right? They just ran a bunch of dudes and people are like, oh, wow, what the heck? And they got a three or whatever. So I find that stuff interesting too. I like how people are creative and do unique stuff to kind of gain that little advantage.
Yeah, I've never had the guts to do it, but I always thought if you just did like on a baseline or a sideline, you did a circle the wagons. All four
Just
guys are just
Yep,
circling
yep,
around and they just randomly go to like that would probably work, but everybody would think you're just such an idiot. So I've just never had the guts to do it. But
right, right. They'd be
that
like,
would
what is
probably really work and be impossible to scout and guard.
right, right.
All right, I actually want to tweak this one and end on a fun one because we've had Florida coaches on before. What's the craziest animal that you've experienced or been around in the Florida?
So yeah, my father-in-law, he jokes all the time, why in the world would you want to live somewhere where everything's trying to eat you? But yeah, so Southwest Florida, we actually have bears, which sounds crazy. You wouldn't believe it, but like we have to put our trash inside our garage every night, our trash can because of the bears. So the craziest thing is my wife and I were walking the other night, and a lot of times like we'll go on a walk together after we put the kids down and just walk around town. And on our way back, our neighbor stops us and he's like, "Hey, like be careful, the bears are out." And then sure enough, there were two bears out in our neighborhood walking around right by our house as we were coming back from our walk. And then a couple weeks prior, we were laying in bed. I think we were watching a show or something. It was probably like 10:30 at night. And we hear rustle against our window. And it sounded like somebody was breaking into our house. Like, what in the crap was that? So, we turn on the lights and I'm out there, I'm looking around, and sure enough, it was a bear. A bear was just right there. But we get gators. The gator thing is they're like deer to us. I mean, my backyard, like there'll be a gator 15 feet from me all the time as I'm sitting there reading or having my coffee. So that's not a big deal to me, but the bear thing still freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, I ain't going outside. There's a bear. Turn my butt right back around and go right back.
Yeah.
Or like one of them giant snakes. I'm turning around. I'm out of here. Gone. Time to go.
Well, Coach, this will be definitely the first episode in about the 125 that I can end with talking about bears. But thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of this episode.
Yeah, it was awesome, fellas. Love talking ball, and it was a blast talking ball with you guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast in partnership with the IBCA. Please be sure to rate us on whatever platform you are listening and give us a 5-star rating. For more show content and updates, please follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout. As always, thank you for listening. Tune in next time for more content on the court, off the court, and anything in between.